Hey, hey, hey. It's Teach Me Tuesday. Listen, I'm so glad y'all here. I was thinking about yesterday when the prosecutor in Chicago dropped the charges against Carlisha Hood and her 14-year-old son. If you're not aware, Carlisha was in some kind of food establishment when a young man just cocked back and just punched her, not once, but twice, not twice, but three times um, before he was shot by her 14-year-old son. Now, there's some conflicting accounts, but allegedly her son was in the store with her when the beating began, left, went to a car, got a gun, or either maybe he had a gun on him. I'm not familiar with some of those details. And then he shot his mother's assailant. And what I think is interesting, and I need somebody to help me quite understand, is many times there were many comments saying that the prosecutor got it wrong, that Carlisha um, should be in jail, that her son, her 14-year-old son, should be in jail. And Carlisha and her son and the victim who's been shot and killed were all Black. Now, well, I have this exercise. I call it an empathy walk that I think is helpful for people to learn how to be more empathetic in these situations. But because we live in the United States of America, I think it's always important for us to think about things through a racial lens that'll help us be more fair. Here's what I mean. I want you to imagine that Carlisha was white. I want you to imagine that somebody in line just reared back and punched her, a man, in her face. And I want you to imagine that he reared back and punched her again. And imagine she's a white woman. And imagine her son then shoots her assailant after she's been clobbered with full force three times. And that the people standing around are recording, watching, running. And I want you to imagine you're 14. And just in case you're not aware, don't remember what 14 is, that's like eighth grade. You're middle school. And there were people who were like, you know, right is right, wrong is wrong. He should be charged. The prosecutor got it wrong. And see, empathy, when you leave race out of it, it's interesting how the hypocrisy goes away, because many of us can't even imagine folks standing around while a white woman is getting punched with full force at a retail outlet, because our compassion would cause us to intervene. Why is that? I need somebody to teach me. Why do we believe that something different would happen? Interestingly enough, even I have avoided getting on social media because I have been trying to be careful. I understand that speaking up and speaking out is not always to my personal benefit. And when a local pastor got on my social media and said, I'm really concerned about the people who simply record. Listen, I'm grateful for people who record, because if you don't record, then you don't have evidence that says she didn't send her son to the car. He's watching his mother being plummeted in public and nobody is helping. So he goes to the car. But I can't help but remember that Shanquella Robinson, while she's on a trip with her friends, is being beaten by another friend while other friends watch, record, and laugh until she dies. Or are they being careful because they don't know what was going to happen? When you look at this case with this lady, AJ Owens, who went to a neighbor's house, Black woman gets shot through the door. She's going to go check with the neighbor about hitting her kids with the skates and calling them the N word. And When you read that affidavit, the murderer is not just a person who is in a squabble with her neighbor. She said that she bought the gun for AJ. She said that she researched stand your ground laws. She admitted that she hit AJ's children with skates. How is this not premeditation? This is a grown woman. But in the United States of America, we want to think that race has nothing to do with these things. And I maintain empathy cannot sit on a bed of ignorance. If it can, you tell me how. If you want to deny that race has a point to play in here, I want you to imagine that the woman shot through the door were white, and imagine her assailant was black. Imagine a black woman buying a gun in advance and telling the police they bought it for their white neighbor. Imagine a black woman telling the police that she bought the gun and then looked up the stand your ground laws to see. I want you to imagine that. You see, that's the empathy walk that's necessary for us to be more fair. And right now, they're saying they don't have enough evidence to charge this grown woman who shot through the door at an assailant, at a neighbor, excuse me, killing her after she has used racial slurs, admitted to it in her affidavit. It's a hate crime. Help me. Help me. Help me. We expect a 14-year-old Black boy to be able to watch his mother be abused. Why? Why is that? Somebody teach me, help me understand. What was he supposed to do? We know that the brain's not fully developed at 14, and we expect that a 14-year-old boy should be able to do what Eric DeValcanier could not do, and he is a trained police officer. And we say, oh, he should go to jail. I wonder sometimes if we could imagine what our world would be like without prisons. I'm not saying there are not people who should be in jail, but have you ever been inside of one of these institutions? Do you know? I mean, the walls are gray. You can feel, if you've got any amount of empathy at all, you can feel the heaviness and the despair in the air. These are not rehabilitation facilities. These are places for the spirit to go and die. And unless we're intending to be in the business of locking people up forever, which I'm not so sure we're not, what do we think is going to happen when we pull these people out of these institutions and put them back into society? Here in my lovely town, we are at almost 100 murders for the year. It's not even July. We're not even at the halfway point yet. And most of the victims, and if not almost all of the perpetrators, are Black. And I'm preparing myself for people to tell us to pray, to say that it is because Black men are not in their homes. It is because there's something just pathologically wrong with Black folk. But about 20 years ago, our school systems were better than they are today. We had multiple grocery stores in our communities, some of which that have been replaced by exercise facilities that are absolute jokes across the street from a McDonald's, and you got donuts in the lobby. Joke. Some just empty edifices. Others replaced by grocery stores, but that are gouging people by the cost. People will say, oh, the city can't sustain a grocery store. But you replace it with a dozen Dollar General and Family Dollars that has food that is highly processed and has hardly any nutritional value, and the price is high. hardly any affordable healthcare options. And if so, the shame associated with going to some of these places. They don't even bother to make sure that, yeah, let me make sure the place is clean and everything is all organized and set up. You have payday loan sharking businesses that have been zoned to be in specific neighborhoods, got people all up on top of each other. And then you say, what's wrong with them? Hmm? There are social determinants for violence. We know what they are, and we don't want to fix them. Why? Because it sells, that narrative sells to make it sound like that there's something uniquely wrong with Black people. And what I want us to remember today are the words of Eldridge Cleaver, which are, there is a point at which careful becomes cowardice. And sometimes my only thing available to me is to speak up and to speak out about these injustices. I am grateful that the prosecutor in Chicago saw fit to let Carlisha Hood and her son go. And I also can't help but wonder if we can numb ourselves, if we can have the level of psychic numbing to watch a man punch a woman like that at a retail store. It is no wonder that we are numb to the levels of domestic violence that are happening in private settings behind closed doors that affect everybody, regardless of socioeconomic status, race, gender, sexual orientation, don't matter. I'm on the board for Ad Hoc Group Against Crime. We are this Friday going to have a community event. I will let you all know what that community event is. In the meantime, I want to remind you of the flea story. You've heard it many times here before, but if you put fleas in a glass, they all jump out because fleas are natural jumpers. But if you put a flea in a glass and you put a lid on that glass, those fleas will jump up and hit their heads against that lid until they realize they cannot get out. At that point, when you have 100% of the fleas realizing they can't get out, they start to jump just below the lid and you can take the lid off. And those fleas will never jump out of the glass, ever. And I used to tell that story for years. In leadership development circles all around the globe, people tell that story to suggest that people suffer from learned helplessness just like fleas and they need to accept personal accountability. But here's what I'll say, sugar. Don't throw the rock and hide your hand. Who put the fleas in the glass? Fleas are not supposed to be in glasses with jars and lids. So we can spend our time talking about the behaviors of fleas as much as we want. But I am going to be here courageously saying over and over and over again, fleas are not supposed to be in glasses with jars and lids. Fleas behave a certain way because of systems of oppression. And until such time as we can break away from these ideas that some people are better than other people and some people deserve to be caged and other people do not, I need you to take this empathy walk, my love. I need you to help me understand how you can't swap the races of people and understand that when you do, you recognize what right is. You imagine yourself being Cameron Lamb and being white and backing into your driveway. Left hand don't even work. And you get shot 4 times by a Black police officer. Imagine that. And when you imagine that, you know, while unfortunate, that Black police officer would go to jail. And there are many people who would suggest that 6 years would not be enough. But here, our Missouri Attorney General is spending his time making sure that not even 6 years get served. I believe I'm a prison abolitionist. I don't believe in this idea of putting people behind bars so that the likes of Victoria's Secret can get their products made for cheaper prices. And we need an empathy revolution in this country. If we're not going to put people in jail, we're not going to put people in jail. Similarly, if we care about people in oceans, we care about people in oceans. But miraculously, we seem to care more about those who have 9 zeros behind their wealth number than those who have 3. I could be wrong. If I am, teach me. But for now, there comes a point when careful becomes cowardice. It's Teach Me Tuesday. We've got work to do.